Okay, this is not the editor I wanted. I mean, it's the editor I wanted. It's not the content I wanted. Microsoft supports a new kind of drive, a dev drive, and decided to give it a shot.
Dev drive.
Yeah, it's optimized to be faster. You can control what kind of filters are set up on it. You have to be careful with it. The immature thing to do, and let's try this, would be you can like shut off all the antivirus filters on it. But they recommend it for like repositories and npm caches and Python caches and things like that. Yeah, build directories. So I set one up and moved my Git folder over here. So I wanted to show, we got Henry and Axel with the thumbs up, the toilet from Josh, and this from Dan, working on it. So Henry commented about 2-3 days ago, or put his thing up 2-3 days ago. Josh put his up last night, I believe. And so these other two were put up later. Dan didn't really have to, but Axel's came up later. We got, so Tristan's out today, so he didn't put one up. And so that leaves us with, boy, I did that out of order. I usually think of the typical seating order. So Michael didn't do this. Is that Darth Maul? Is that you? It's so backlit.
Hi.
Hi. Okay.
I'm Darth Maul.
Hi, Darth. So you didn't get to reading the homework stuff this week?
No.
Yeah.
But I did just read it and have now posted that I did.
All right. So yeah, and I didn't, when did I post this though? The 15th. So I posted this 5 days ago. I know it might be unusually early for me, but I'm trying to get better, right? Monday. So yeah, there's some good information in here. And a lot of times I go ahead and ask you to do things. I think it's unlikely that you're gonna get anything significant done if you don't look at it until last night or today or class time, right? And I was looking at our GitHub repository. Here we go.
Ooh.
Remember this? This is the slideshow I finished as Michael was calling me on the phone. And it was our first meeting where we decided that we were not going to refer to ourselves as that. And so here we go. It says CDC stands for Cyber Defense Competition, the event you will win next spring, maybe. Now, I made a point last year and haven't mentioned it this year. Some homeschool programs almost make it a point of pride that they tell you that they're going to be your top priority, right? You can't take vacation with your family without clearing it with us in Congress. You will not miss any. You will not miss any of our planned meetings unless you have a fever of 107 or greater.
You can feel free to just.
It's not. There's a lot of things that kids I think feel a lot of pressure to make this. This, we have to do this. And sometimes too, even though they don't intend to, kids get a whole bunch of just somehow there's all this expectation. I wanted to stay in Florida one more day on a vacation so that we could see what I think was the last space shuttle launch ever. But the kids were like, we have to get back for this that only one of us is going to. You know, it's like, what? So I said, you know, we'll win this event, maybe. I'm not, so this is all about what you got, your guys' priorities, right? And then I said, your chance of winning is directly related to how much time you put into learning outside of class and how much you let your curiosity take you beyond the exact things we discussed. Right now, with the homework, we're not tracking to win, okay? I just want to mention that. We're looking at things sometimes the day before. I would say largely, at least half of you each week are not looking at them in a time frame that gives you a chance to do them, and I'm not sure each week if half of it, you know, I don't my expectation based on what I've seen is that I'm going to ask on Saturday, hey, who did the homework? And if half of you do it, I'm like, oh, good week, you know. And I think one time I asked and 3 people had done it, or 4 or whatever, and I was like, whoa, this is awesome. And now sometimes we have won this way. I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer. I'm just trying to be, this is where we are, okay? And it's your guys' decision. I'm totally serious about that. Maybe we want, this might be what we want to do. You have your priorities. And before I go back to the line of thought, which I'll probably forget, the reason I do this way is that this is the way the world works. The world doesn't work like and the world doesn't work like the or whatever, where somebody says you can't go to the funeral unless you share at least 25% DNA, right? And I'm making up silly examples, obviously, right? When my kids were in these programs, it was percent DNA. It does work this way. So I figure you guys are in programs like this because you're curious about getting into careers that have autonomy and where you have a lot of ability to carve out your own career. Might not have anything to do with what we're studying, but I'm not. So there's a couple of things you might notice about what I do. I don't teach to the test. I try to teach to make the group smart, to try to teach you how to solve problems, to teach you why things work the way they do, because those are the problem-solving skills that get you through all the unexpected things that happen in competition, because there's no way we're going to hit everything that's in the competition. It's never happened. It never will for any team ever, right? They're always going to throw in something that you're like, oh, never would have thought to cover that. So I try to teach to make you guys a smart team, a resilient team, and a team that's really great at problem solving, while at the same time covering fundamentals, right? My goal is that when you get to the competition, you're going to be several times more comfortable with scripting and Linux and Windows and security concepts and networking and, you know, maybe a couple other things than you were at the beginning of the year. And so you're going to do several times better at the competition than you would have at the beginning of the year. That probably just makes sense. And also the teamwork factor that Dan talks about, and, you know, hopefully you get that vibe with me too. You know, that's something that just being together and getting rapport with each other, you know, that's important. And just learning how to work together. You know, all the way into grad school, when I chose the degree I did, I was relieved that I was interested in that degree because the other option had a team project and I didn't want to do it. I'd done 2 team projects and I was like, I hate team projects. But that was probably one of the more valuable things, right? I was just like, oh, I want to do the technical stuff. And it turns out that technical stuff is all about working on teams. You know, these things are all important. But depending how much you want to prioritize doing well at the competition, well, that comes down to how you prioritize getting into the homework and and just being curious during the week and how much time you set aside to do these things. So, I know in the past, especially last year, I didn't do a great job of getting homework in front of the team. I think I've been doing a better job lately, I mean. Am I putting out too much for the time that you want to put into it? Are we just kind of out of sync because the year's getting started? Are you doing more of it than I think you are? Are my observations out of sync? Are you hoping to win, or are you more interested in learning? Just all those kinds of things. I was just looking for feedback on this, because the whole thing with put an emoji on here when you've seen this was just kind of a sanity check. Am I right that they're not really looking at this right away? And Henry got to it pretty fast. Do you guys have any feedback for me about all of this? And Dan, you're definitely, your input's welcome too. I just want to know if I can do anything better, or if we're good. Because, like I said, I want this to be more like, if you have a job with a lot of autonomy, well, that's what the other thing I was going to say. You make your own priorities, right? And that's the thing I want you to be able to do here that you don't get to, right? It's more of a grown-up skill for a job with autonomy. And if this is the priority set you want, or maybe you have to have because of other things you're engaged in, I get that. I'm fine with that. So, go. Hard topic, I know, but don't answer without fear. Safe place, and I'm fine with whatever you say.
I think currently I am a bit out of sync. Classes just started for me, and I'm still figuring out how to effectively allocate time.
Okay. Thanks.
Still says he's stuck on mute, but feel free to type something and I will read it for you if you would like, Axel. So you invited me to speak directly. So I'm just going to, I'm one of the parents / coaches, and I kind of think that this is a discussion for the team. It's not my team. It's not my money, my time that's being used. It might, so there's
I thought you might have feedback for me, though. Well, and maybe we do that in our private special channel.
Anytime we have a team project, and you're going to find this throughout. I mean, you're going to be in college and you're going to have some team project and for some random course, and you're going to have the people that are working on it. You're going to have people that aren't working on it. You're going to have all of that. I think probably one of the most effective things is to discuss not only what the goals are, but what sorts of commitment each person is going to put into it, so that they can both plan on what that looks like and know what their responsibility is right at the beginning, and have at least verbally agreed to it in some fashion. And so, winning is a great goal, but it doesn't, what exactly does that mean? It doesn't really define that. If you were saying, and I'm most familiar, of course, with Michael and what his life looks like. If the team were to decide, we have an expectation that you're spending 3 hours outside of Saturday mornings working on it, then Michael has a schedule and he would put that on his schedule. Boom. And that's a defined contribution as opposed to the rather undefined contribution, or whatever that looks like. So and that might be useful. Whenever you're on a team, you're going to have some sort of issue with how how much time is actually being taken on this? I know that there are some people on this that, like Henry and Tristan, that this is I mean, what they've said is that this is really the profession they want to pursue. Both of them have told me that. Maybe not specifically cyber defense. I think Henry's more in the white hat, the penetration testing. I think that's what he told me. Right? Okay. I see him nodding. And Tristan, he's the last time I talked to him was at the cyber defense competition, and he knows he wants to go somewhere in computer science, software engineering, but this is definitely the direction he wants to take his further education. And I don't know Oxel and Joshua what exact. So they might be interested in doing more just because this is their profession. Whatever they do now is going to pay them back a lot in the future, but there's always this discussion, and it's always part of the team discussion. Is that good feedback? Okay.
Yeah.
I hope that made sense. I'm running a fever, or at least I was yesterday. So if I'm going off into la la land, that's me. Sorry.
No, that's good. Thank you. What's that? Oh, nothing. Annual gadget brainstorm. You guys trying to give Axel his voice. Axel, if you want to go back to Wayland and not worry about X this week so that you can talk, I think that's more important. If you agree, go ahead. So Michael, Josh, Henry, any?
Oh,
For me,
wait,
I'm just
sorry. Yeah. not trying to double dip you there. Oh,
go ahead.
No, sorry about that. But yeah, Josh, Henry, anything?
okay. For me, I'm just pretty busy right now. I'm working on like multitasking and figuring out all the classes and everything. So I'm trying, but so yeah. I'd like to get to competition and do this thing. I just have a lot going on, so I'm trying to sort out all the multitasking everything. So
Oh, we'll get to competition. No. And this is a good team. We maybe I should wait till Axel's back. I could talk slowly. This team has a lot of potential. There's a lot of the decision to have people on the team who could somehow answer yes in any way, but could look us in the eye and say yes to the question, can you program anything? That was a good move. We didn't ask people like, can you program multitasking in F# or something like that? SH. Hey, look at that, Henry's camera.
That's weird.
But it gets us people who either are programmers or they're interested or they've done something out of curiosity, or they. So what we've got this year, for the first time in the entire time I've coached, is a team without anybody showing up. Hey, Axel, unmuted guy. I was just explaining that. The short version is we were talking about competition. I was saying, one thing about this team is that there's a ton of potential for the competition, because this is the first year out of. I started coaching when Gabe was in like 9th grade, and Gabe is now 29. So do the math. I don't know. And this is the first time I've ever had a team that doesn't have anybody who showed up. And when I asked, hey, why are you here? They said, oh, I thought I wanted to learn something about computers, or something like that, because we put this question in as a gate. Can you program anything? we didn't ask, are you good at programming, or, we sort of talked to you about it, right? But that meant we got people who could program, or at least they were interested in programming and had tried some, it put some kind of bar on it. And so we've got people, everybody can program, is learning to program, and all this, and they're interested, right? And this is a good team. So this is just a sanity check. It sounds like part of what happened is the week I chose. Did school just start back up this week or something, or?
Yeah.
So I chose like
Yeah.
the worst possible week to do the pulse check. So, yeah, that's cool.
Hey,
Yeah.
Axel, can you actually speak yet?
Axel, come forth. He was unmuted. Oh,
Askel.
oh man.
Okay. Can you type something? Can you hear us? Or are you just AFK?
That is weird. You're in a browser, right? Is anybody else using a browser? Josh,
I'm
you
also using a browser and in a
I'm using a
Linux
browser.
is using the
distribution.
app.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
But I'm guessing he can't unmute.
I think it was weird when he came on, he was unmuted. At first, did you mute yourself, or did the app mute you, Axel? It muted when I
It
joined
muted
audio.
when I joined audio. Okay.
That is, maybe he's using an NVIDIA audio card. Sorry. Well, that sucks. Yeah, that's what it does. It sucks. Okay, well, this good feedback. I'm gonna try browser. Okay. If you get on and want to say something,
He's up.
yeah, he is.
I
Henry,
just want to
you
make
haven't-
sure. Henry, yeah, go ahead.
Did you have anything you wanted to add?
I'd say I balance the homework with whatever else I'm working on. So about 3 or 4 hours a week is what I'm putting in outside of Saturdays. That's usually about how long it takes me to rabbit hole through the homework.
Yeah, and I think that, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think I could, without cheating, actually going through and learning the process. Like this week, it took me 4 hours maybe just to, kind of absorb the process more.
Cool.
So
Yeah, and I think that you are making time. I can tell that. And next year when you're out of high school, you can come back and co-teach it, so I can learn about everything you've done with these certifications. So
that's good.
yeah, where are you going to be next year? You taking some classes at? I think he told me. Are you going to Kirkwood for a while, or are you going off?
I'm looking into
to
a
MIT
Kirkwood
or
program
what?
that's starting. Kirkwood is starting a 2-year program in cybersecurity, I think, next year.
Yeah.
This coming fall. So I'm going to look into that and see what's involved and what all the details are.
Iowa State has a 4-year program, so when we're at the competition, you can talk to Dr. Jacobson. He kind of is. He sort of sits on a throne and oversees things. It's his. He's the guy. Yeah.
He's the guy.
He's been doing it the whole time that we've been going, which is the whole time.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yay.
sir.
yes.
It's a party now.
Web browsers actually work. Who
Yeah.
knew?
Who knew?
Who
So what? Do you have anything to add, Axel? Not that you've heard everything everybody else has said, but I've learned so far that classes started this week, so I picked the worst possible week to do a pulse check, and so some of the people are kind of out of sync, trying to work out their schedules and everything. but the interest level is good, right? I know some people are busy. I mean, I knew from last year that Michael, for example, tends to take a 1 gallon container and pour 3 gallons of liquid into it and make it work somehow. But you know, he's always got a lot going on, and I'm sure that's true of everybody. But anyway, so what about you? Do you have anything to mention, to share?
I think it's a little of everything you've mentioned, you know, like, you know, school's starting again and people are busy. I'm sure, but there is a lot of interest in this. For me personally, I can tell others also have that interest.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting team. Yeah, yeah, and like Dan said, you can, you know, across this team, there's obvious interest in you know, specific technical areas, and like I said, this first team we've had where everybody has a specific interest. So, and that's cool. So you know, I had a team like this once. Whoa, it made me huge on my. It hit my screen. There we go. I had a team like this once. It was a little. They had leveled. They were leveled up. They'd been to several competitions and, you know, won a couple times, but we didn't coach that year because my wife and I were separated. I was very focused on that, and they met 3 times. After the scenario came out, they met 3 times and went to the competition. But because of what they knew, right, because of their technical ability, they finished second. I think I've told that story at least last year, but they finished second. They really should have finished. They really should have won. They were way ahead, and they got social engineered, but which is a great story. Yeah, but yeah, there's a team of 3, and 2 of them gave the creds away. So I mean, they had it coming, but I still give them a hard time when I see them. But yeah, so 10:51. I wanted to show. Let me shut off my camera. Anything else to say, or Dan? It seemed like you might have had something. I'm going to stop my video here.
So I think it's probably worthwhile for part of the homework, just a small part, is to do a little bit of thinking on, you know, some sort of like, do you think you could do 1 or 2 hours per week? I know some people are doing more than that. Henry said he was doing 3 to 4. But what is your comfort level? What is it that you're able to put in? And you know, just so that because what I hear Chris saying is that he's looking for an expectation so that he can, you know, gauge things appropriately. I mean, and then maybe, like, I'm sorry, Chris, I'm throwing you under a bus here, but maybe if you found that you had a couple people that were willing to do a little bit and a couple more people that wanted to go much more in depth, you could actually do like a homework. So here's the
core.
Here's one level, and then there's, you know, some additional areas you might look at are these. So, you know, something like that.
Yeah. I think that'd be easy to do because usually, you know, I'm kind of, sometimes I'm already thinking that way. I'll say, okay, here's a script to review. And like this week I said, you know, and experimentation is key, you know, or something like that. And I could say, well, here's a script, you know, the core thing would be to walk through it, you know, maybe rewatch some part of the video from this minute mark to that minute mark, make sure this makes sense. Next piece, if you have time, would be to do this, you know, and just and build it up that way. I don't think I could put time. I don't think I could put. I don't think I could time box it because I think everybody on the team has their own speed, and even if they have the same speed, I don't know what it is. So
right, but even if you don't, if you can't time box it, you've got a general sense of how much people are willing to, how much time people have to do things. And it's not a willingness thing; it's a it's a
availability thing. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm
least
going to mute now.
and then if you have time, this and then that, and then that, go as far as time allows or as far as you want to or whatever. So yeah, I can start trying to do that. I think that would help a lot if the team agrees. Does that make sense to you guys? If I said, here's the piece I would really like you to do. Here's some other ideas. That might be actually, that's what you said too, Dan. Here's some other ideas. Treat it like a buffet. Smorgasbord, pick what you want.
Looks like we lost Josh.
Oh, we barely knew him.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you see me?
That was great.
All right, I'm sorry. You were off screen on mine, but I couldn't see you. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
All right. So if that's good, that'll be my action item to I was like, how am I supposed to type here? And then I realized Zoom was in my way. That's what made it look like I didn't have access to this. So this is an action item for Chris, is to have like core homework plus like extras. I don't know what that means when I see it. Okay. So one thing I wanted to do, and I mentioned this in our postings, but let's see. This was our, I forgot the name PowerShell for a second. This was our PowerShell script that we looked at last week. And it comes in at 88 lines, something more like 80 lines of code. The bash script was 150 lines. And so it seemed easier to write this one. And it was a lot shorter. We talked about how, PowerShell is a little bit higher, has a feel of a higher level language. And the way it works, let's see. It looks pretty much the same as the other one, but we'll just take a peek at it here again. Oops. There we go. Nope, that one. So you get, I don't think there's many files here, so, but we got shell scripts and PowerShell scripts. So we'll do this, show me all the shell scripts, and we'll sort by file name. So it looks very much the same as the one that we did in bash, right? And this time we'll look at the PS1s by vowel count, because there's only 3 of them. 4, 6, 6. That's kind of boring. And this time we'll get everything. We'll sort it by file name length, right? So same idea, right? And I mentioned last week that one of the things that this is cool for an interactive script. This works just fine, right? But we talked a little bit about how this bit of code isn't just, displaying text on the screen when we build these PS custom objects, which are just, I don't know if here, let me make this a little bigger. Whoa, that's a lot bigger. But your young eyes can probably tell better than mine. That's a curly brace, not a paren. And so inside here, this is a hash array. or a hash table, whatever you want to call it, but it's a dictionary basically, and this @ sign in front of it is just the thing that says this is going to be a hash table, a hash array. And by the way, the reason it needs that is that if you do this in PowerShell, let's see, let me grab this. Whoops. I missed backspace. There we go. If I do that, it's just going to say, what? No, that's no good, because it's trying to run this as code. This is a code block, right? The curly braces, just like it would be in, C style languages. And you know that in PowerShell because you see it in things like for each file in dir, and then you see curly brace, right? And then whoops, and then you do something inside of it. That's a bit of code. And so in PowerShell, if you want to express that something's going to be an array, a list, that's the array operator. So this looks pretty confusing, but if you break it down, this is an array. The curly braces mean it's not a normal array that's indexed by numbers. It's a dictionary or a hash table that's indexed by whatever I say it's going to be indexed by. Okay, so this is just a hash table that I can look up. I'll be able to look up the values by using these keywords, name length, and name vol count. But then this was the magic bit. We're going to say this is a PS custom object. And when I do that, it still looks like a hash table. Whoops, I got an extra thing there. So if I just display it, it's going to look like this. It looks, I don't have a, hang on. Well, we might as well be consistent. There are 3 in that name. I have a dollar file because of the code I ran previously, but I don't have a vowel count. So if I do this, I get out something that looks like, and it could be anything, right? But if I ask, what is that thing? It's going to say, this is a custom object. And so I've created an object that now has some special properties. And to be a little more clear about this, if I get rid of the PS custom object, I get back just a normal hash table, right? It doesn't, this isn't the same. And so a hash table has properties called name and value, right? It also has keys. If I asked for the keys, I would get back name length, name vol count, and name. Well, I can do this, right? As a list. And so this is what a hash table looks like. When I turn this thing into a PS custom object, all of a sudden I have properties that include the ones I made up. And so that means I can do things like I can select those things. All of a sudden and even the IntelliSense knows, this thing is one of my PowerShell objects. It has all of this metadata that I now understand, right? And so I can say, yeah, I'm just going to do, all the PowerShell sorts of things with it. So I can do, selecting. I can sort this. There's only one row, right? So this doesn't make any sense, but I could sort it by name length. Oh, yeah, that worked. So this is really pretty powerful. You can create these objects that have properties that you specify, which is, again, a little easier to work with than just getting a hash table out where your properties are buried inside this keys property, right? And so in the script, I made a custom object for each file I got, and then dumped it into an array. You see the array operator there again. Kept dumping it into this array called files, And then when I was done, I just sorted the files object. I got to treat it like a normal PowerShell thing, right? So that's pretty spiffy. And by the way, this is explained in this comment, but the reason I have this assignment here that tells PowerShell that files this is an empty array, is that hang on. Let's try to make this kind of like what's in the code. If I say this is my file, right, just like in the code. And then if I say, I don't think I have anything called files, do I? Okay. If I say files, and let's make sure that I don't, because I did run some code. All right. If I say files plus equals file at this point, oh, did that work? I didn't think it would. That's why it's in the code. Oh, okay. So now I've got one of these. Let me see if this works. So what if I add it again? Can I do that? So this didn't fail because it's the same object. It failed because it got one custom object, right? And then I tried to put another one into it, and it says, but custom object doesn't have an addition operator. I can't add one in. And it says that because it didn't know I intended this thing to be an array. Does that make sense? I just started with files. Files wasn't anything. I said that files is, I initialized files to be a custom object, and it just said, okay. And then I said, hey, I want to add another one to it. And I used the addition operator is how you do that. And it said, no, you can't add to a custom object. So what you have to do instead is say, hey, I'm going to start using this thing called files, and it's an array. And so then I should be able to do this, right? Because it knows it's an array now. And you start to get this. I know this is stupid this way. You start to get this out where you have a list of files, and now you can sort this. And that's what happens. Oops, this is going to take forever. Get filtered. That's what happens in my script when you see this, is that this is an array of PS custom objects. Now,
Since when does plus equals append?
That's the defined behavior for an array. It's not unusual in languages. Some languages will give an array a dot append operator. Sometimes you can override operators. So I'm trying to remember what's your favorite language, Axel? I can't remember. I know you like command. There's nothing like this in command so far as I know. But
I'll say Python for the sake of your demonstration.
I'm fairly certain in Python it's __add__.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you see this? So this is for
the add.
If you wanted to, you could redefine this dunder. I know you love that word. You could redefine this dunder to do subtraction. And whatever you tell this dunder to do, that's what will happen when you use the plus operator.
Yep. So you can also do this with like custom classes.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you add two members of the same class, it'll do whatever you chose it to do in the add function.
Yeah. And so that's what's happening here is they've just defined, this is basically a method of this array class. I mean, it's an operator, but an operator has to be tied to code, right? So they've tied this function or method or whatever you want to call it to code that appends for this class. So interesting, right? So anyway, last week I said, most things in PowerShell that are built into the shell, they don't behave like this, right? If I want to get a list of files, whoops, there we go. Then I say get, it's get child item is the usual way. It doesn't stop and ask me, hey, what filter do you want? You just have to say as a parameter, there's a that I want star.sh or something like that. So there are these parameters. Sometimes they can be mandatory. I can't think of one right off, and I'm not going to bust my brain doing it because I'm going to show you one in a moment. And in that case, if you don't supply one, it'll stop and ask you for it with a uniform dialogue that it always uses. And this makes it much more feasible to return, objects, right? Because with my script, there's all this text on the screen. What you could do is write the text to write host, and then push the objects out normally, and you could do cute code. That's what I'm saying. And there are ways to do it. And if it was the right use case where you wanted to interact with the user and still push things to the standard stream that the next command could use as objects, you could do that. But because PowerShell is object oriented, the idiomatic or common way to do things in PowerShell is to just run the commandlet and produce the output. And you put all the interactivity into parameters, right? So I mentioned that if we were really going to write this, it would probably be a commandlet. And I wanted to show you a commandlet version of this. So I abandoned the other, I mentioned I had a different version of this that I was working on, but it was similar to the one I used in Bash that put all the menu stuff put all the menu logic into arrays and things. But I thought, well, that's not really, that's kind of trickier coding, and it's not representative of what you do. What you do would be simpler coding, and it would be to turn it into a commandlet. So I switched names. This is my commandlet, get file list. And don't let this scare you. I'll show you how this happens. This is a doc string. And then these are parameters. I'll show you how this all works in a bit. But this, right? This is just validating one of the parameters. We start there. That's really this bit right there. That's the whole thing. Because we got rid of the interactivity part. I don't have to build menus. I don't have to ask the user questions, right? All of that was dominating that script. And so the commandlet itself boils down to about 25 lines of code, including comments and blank lines. So basically, I got a little pickier about what I do with this filter. Before I used to just put a star at the beginning and a star at the end. And here I'm saying, well, I need to include this bit. If the first character of the filter string, so that's index 0, if that's not a star, I'm going to put a star at the beginning. Okay? And then this -1, this is a shortcut for $filter paren or index filter dot length -1, right? You can just get rid of the filter dot length if you're using a negative number. It's the same thing. And nobody does the long one because it's too long. So this is the last. Suppose that my filter is, I put the star on the front now. So suppose that it's A, B, C, D, right? So that is 5 long, but the indexes are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So filter -1, if it's $filter dot length -1, well, filter dot length, it's 5 long, right? 5 minus 1, that's going to get me 4. That's this last index. So it's looking at the D. Okay. So anyway, this is a way to get the last character, because we start indexing at 0, so you always have to subtract 1. Control Z, your friend. So filter -1, or an index of -1 gets you the last one because it's length -1. -2 gets you the next to last one. -3 gets you the, and on and on. If you actually get to, so the length is 5, and if you say -5, that's 5 minus 5, that's 0, so that's the first character. If you say -6, you don't get anything because that's a null entry in the index. So anyway, so this just says, if the last character is not a star, right, then I'm going to add one to the end, plus equals for a string there. And then I create my empty array. And this code's pretty much the same. There's my way to find my vowels. Here's my PS custom object. And I will I should probably return this. I didn't think about this. What is this bit of interactivity doing here? Let's get rid of that. Make the users deal with it. So now I just return this, and I'm done. Just made my commandlet even shorter. I'll talk about this stuff later, probably, maybe. But this is basically what drives my help file. We don't need to worry about this right now, except to say that it makes advanced parameter characteristics available. And you can see that I can do things with my parameter definitions that are a little bit more than saying it's an int and it has a default. So here I'm saying, this one's not mandatory. The syntax is really weird. Okay, so you just look it up. In VS Code, there's a alias. You can just type in param, and it gives you these choices. This is the one I start with, the parameter block advanced function, and it types in this. It's not a lot, but it gets you started. It includes this commandlet binding thing, and it gives you the start of one parameter. So, and then you look at the docs or you look for examples and figure the rest out. Anyway, it's not mandatory, and I can tell it. By the way, it only takes 3 values. These are them. I can say it has aliases. Its name is name. Sort property. Oh, sorry. Its name is sort property. That confused me. Its name is sort property, but it's okay if they call it S or sort. Its data type is string, and its default value is name. Okay. This one is also not mandatory. It has aliases of pattern or P, and it's called filter. And so now the interesting thing about this file is what happens if you run it. What's going to happen if I run this? So let me collapse. I just collapsed where my parameters are declared. I'm going to collapse where I add the stars to my filter parameter. This is the section where I get my files. And this is where I return the object. So this is, and then I'll collapse this whole doc string section. So this is the outline of the whole file. There's a doc string. Then I declare a function, declare some parameters. mess with the filter parameter, make sure it has asterisks, but only if they're not already there. Get my files and put them into my PS custom object, right? And then return my PS custom object. So when I run this script, what happens?
Nothing.
Nothing. One thing happens.
Well, one thing happens. It defines the function.
It defines the function. That is correct.
Nothing visibly happens.
Nothing happens visibly, did you say? Go ahead. I just didn't hear quite.
I think that I'm not as confident in that answer.
Yeah, so if I do this, nothing happens. But the function should be created, right? So the function, and this is important, if you do this now and you hit tab, it's probably going to do that. That's not what you don't want to run the file again, right? So you have to remember this is called get file list. But if I do this, oh, that's not going to work.
Oh.
So they tell you, well, this isn't found, but there's a current location. There's this thing called get file list in this directory. Maybe you meant / get file list. Maybe. But that's not right because we just did that, right? And that didn't
If
do
you
anything.
trust this command, run the following command instead. Windows sign dash.
Yeah. What command? So there's a missing piece here. And what happens is if you run the script, it's running in a subshell. And a subshell, when it returns, you don't inherit its environment back. So what happens is you call, get file list .ps1, and then that creates a subshell. Ooh, look at the cool glyph that happened.
Oh.
And then this creates a function. The function gets created inside the subshell. And then we exit the subshell. And now the function is out of scope. This makes sense? And does it seem like a problem?
That is kind of a problem.
Yeah.
It is. And there's a solution. This is the way scripts generally work. It works this way in Bash also, or in Linux also, not just Bash. By default, when you run a script, it starts its own shell, and it doesn't even inherit your environment variables. Unless, and sometimes this is like an eye-opener for people, this is why sometimes you export variables. If you export a variables, then your subshells will see those variables. If you don't export them in Linux, they don't see those variables. That's, anyway. In Power, what you do, though, you ever see this command in Linux or see a dot in front of a command and wonder why it's there? You can do the same thing here. I don't think we have a source command. They should have aliased this. Looks like the same thing happened. But now it works. What happens here is that whoops. Oh man, I wrecked my comment. What happens here is probably what you're going to expect. Is that Then current session. Creates function. And then all this other stuff is happy. And this is when you hear about sourcing a script. Sourcing a script means you want to run it in your current session. That's it. And so in Linux, there's actually the keyword source. I don't know if that's a kernel built in or if it's a shell command. But this is what it does. It says, I don't want this to run in a subshell. It needs to affect my current shell. So I'm running it here. And that I think might be where the dot comes from. You know how in file systems, the dot means here, this directory. In shells, the dot means here, this session. And that's how I'm thinking about it anyway. Source is in Linux, probably source or dot. One of them is an alias for the other. I don't know. Dot has to be an alias because you can't have a file named dot because that means this directory. But anyway, that's what happens. You have to do this. This is the same thing, the same reason why in Bash, your like bash rc file, .bashrc, which mine is pointing someplace else, but same difference. This one has to be sourced. When you log in, this one has to be sourced. Otherwise, it would run in a subshell and none of your environment would get set up, right? The subshell would exit and nothing in your resource, none of your resource commands, none of your bash rc would be persistent. So you see this in config files all the time. They're sourced so that the changes will persist. They run in your own shell. So this is an important thing. I'm belaboring the point because it's really important. And so many people get confused about it. They get confused about, in Linux, I've seen people that have, for a long time, they say, well, why do sometimes I say my var equals 1, but then sometimes I say export my var 2, equals 2. And the reason is that here, let's say if I'm going to have a script called temp 1.sh, let's build a temporary one, and shebang bin bash, and I'm going to say let's look at all of my parameters, but I'm going to say just show me lines that say my var. Oops, can't do that up there. And then I'm going to make it executable, change the mode, add an X for me in temp 1.sh. I probably should have said u plus X, meaning the owning user should get the X, but I feel comfortable that this script will not harm things. Because I exported my var to, the subshell sees it. I didn't export my var, and so it's not exported to the subshell. That's it. That's all it means. You're young, your brains are pliable. I want you to know this today before you're 35 and somebody shows, really, I've seen good programmers, well paid, lots of experience, have no idea why they have to do this. So they export everything. And that means they wind up with stuff in their subshell that should not be there and might even cause side effects they don't want, right? If you want all your subshells to see it, you export it, that's it. And then to show the other effects, I can do it in Bash, that's fine. I guess we just did. No, we did
Let's
this in
go
Power.
side effects.
Yeah, we like side effects. Sometimes they are so much fun. Yeah. And then we've seen the other effect with sourcing here, right? When we didn't source the file, and then we tried to run the function that got created, we found out, yeah, that didn't work because it happened in a subshell. But when we said, do it here, dot, right? Then we were able to run this. I was curious, right? Type.
Ooh.
I love the and source. Okay, they're both shell built in. So the shell knows that if dot comes at the beginning of a line, it's a keyword, as opposed to if it comes like here. Oh, then PWD is processing it as an argument. It's a glob. Okay, that's just going to twist my brain. I don't want to think about that. So anyway, once this function's created, right, we can say get file list. I should move to a different directory. I can say get file list, and I can, because I added those, this is where the commandlet bindings are going to come in. This stuff that I'm not really talking about, I'm just going to show you. All this stuff I declared in the commandlets, or I'm sorry, in the parameters, I put in a dash, and the tab stuff's going to work, right? I'm going to get all the built-in, the warning, all the stuff that PowerShell gives all of the commandlets. But my guys, sort property and filter, are going to be here. And if you'll recall, I actually told PowerShell sort property only takes 3 values. So if I hit space and start hitting tab, it gives me those as choices. So I can say, yeah, I want to sort on vowel count. And then if I hit dash and hit tab again, it says filter. And then I can put my filter right here. Like, how about the letter E? Hey, that's the wrong hand. It's an I. Okay. And then it just does this for me. It's kind of hard to, they do all have eyes, but that's kind of a hard one to see. And so this now behaves like this is a fine commandlet, right? Say get member, it's returning custom objects, but consumers don't usually care too much what this is unless they're after .NET behavior, but PowerShell wraps almost all those objects for people. What people care about is that they have access to these guys, right? And there's not a ton we can do with these since we're already sorting by any of the columns. Not sure what else we would want to do, but just as an example, just to make an example out of nothing. Trying to hit the easiest syntax here. Oh, we can do this. For each object, put in curly braces, and we'll just write something out. Right? We'll write to the host intentionally this time, so we can use color, and we'll say file name such and such has length such and such. And this isn't the only way to format. It's just the way I've started with you guys, and it's easy. This is an easy way to do it. And the automatic variable in PowerShell that stands for whichever object we're working on is that one. So I think that $_ has a lot of different uses in computer science. It's a weird thing. So anyway, $dot or $_ and I thought it would give me completion here. So I want, nope, thought it would $.name or $_name and $_ length. Hopefully it's not refusing autocomplete because of a syntax error. This looks right to me. Oh, it might be a syntax error. When you use one of the write commands and you've got something other than a single expression over here, you have to put it in parentheses or it won't know what to do. It'll print them separately, I guess. Let's see. There we go. And now, the reason we used write host, of course, was because we wanted to say what foreground color, black. Yes. I like it. This is how I produce all of my TPS reports at work. Foreground color red. Now it looks like I'm terribly worried about these file lengths because I made it red. That was the effect I was going for. So anyway, the point being that because I'm returning objects, I can access their properties and do whatever I want because they're PowerShell objects, right? Groovy and cool. So that's how you turn this thing into a commandlet. Pretty easy. If you want, you can, by the way, in PowerShell, you can stick to, I wanted to show you these advanced parameter sets, but maybe I should mention that it's just fine to say, I've got a function called square, get square. Be specific, get squared int. And it's just fine to say, I've got a parameter called the int or something like this, and just leave it at that, right? And then you can return. And in this case, because with PowerShell, you'd probably do this since it's just squaring. And this is fine. So you don't have to use all that fancy stuff. I probably should have put that someplace where we'd run into it sooner, but so this works. So you can do these basic things, but one thing I've got going for me with my commandlet is that I can do this. Oh, it didn't paginate. Don't know why, but it's got my stuff. I thought I had examples. Erg. Didn't I put examples in there? I did. Why didn't this happen? This is not the correct help. I saw it this week. Maybe I added a typo in here someplace, but when the whole point of this being a doc string is that this is where help gets its examples and external links and all this stuff. Not sure what I broke, but I broke it somehow. My apologies. But that's what that part's all about. If you're using VS Code, by the way, let me see here. I want to tell it that this is PowerShell. Do this. Put it in one of my throwaway directories. Okay, now it should know what this is, right? If you find the right plugins, you can look really smart. And what I did to get all that documentation, which one did I use? This one? Okay, so let me go back. Trying to hide. Whoa, sorry about that. Let me go back and get this without the doc string. And then I'm going to tell this plugin that I want a doc string.
We lost the screen share. Is that intentional?
Nope. My bad. Thank you.
There it
Okay.
goes. Continue.
Yep. Shoot. So let me just redo this. So I pasted, this is a new file, and I put everything over here except the doc string, right? And then I told this plugin, Codium AI, for which I needed to I have to have an OpenAI API key for this. But I told it, yeah, please make a doc string for this commandlet. And it said, okay, here you go.
Oh, wow.
Whoops. The should be description should be the first one, I think. Oh no, oh, there it is. And so you thought I've done these from scratch before by getting something from another file, but I messed with this a little bit. Like I never see anybody use that bit, so I got rid of that. Outputs, but whatever. Let's leave this one as is. Let's source this one and see if we get the help right. There we go. So this one fixed it. You see, I've got the description now. Synopsis retrieves a list of files based on specified criteria. Got some examples.
Has the examples.
Yeah. So, I mean, there might be things that are wrong. In fact, I think I remember number of vowels in the file name. Oh, it got it right this time. Last time I had to correct this bit, the length of the file name. So it was better this time. But yeah, that's just the syntax they use to create these doc strings that then are fed into the help system when you create the object. And then the AI can just, if you have access to an AI API key, it can speed things up because it goes and reads the code, and the semantic power of these large language models just is stunning, right? It is a paradigm shift for programming. Google right now has more.
I don't think.
Oh, go ahead.
So there's another one that's called Codium with an E.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that one you don't need an open AI API key for.
Oh, that's cool. And this one, I think it says you can get started for free, but since I've got an API key, maybe I just supplied it so I wouldn't have to worry about limits or whatever. Actually, you still have to worry about limits. You have to tell it, yeah, I'm willing to use up to 4,000 tokens per request or something. But really, there's no way I'm going to bankrupt myself, because they set it up for an organization. I'm like, okay, my organization is databaseguy.com. You have to put something there. It's like, well, what's your budget? And it's like, I really don't think I'm going to blow a budget, by myself in VS Code. But yeah, so some of those tools are cool. If you guys find good AI tools that are free, pop them into the resource thing, share them with each other, because I was going to say, I saw somebody, I was watching there's something that was on the web, I can't remember, it was a real businessy kind of channel, but they said that Google right now has more job openings for data scientists than they do for software developers. Although the data scientists are software developers, they have to know how to use. And by the way, the typical skill set for software developer is Python, R, the language R, and within Python, a couple libraries called Pandas and NumPy or NumPy. I'm not sure how it's supposed to be pronounced. So there's a typical skill set. If you go and look at any of the online training, you look at 5 of them, and there will be about 5 things that are in all of them, and those are the skills. And right now, those are the jobs that are really, really high paying. So what?
All these companies love using their NumPy.
Yeah. Yep. Is it NumPy? Is that? Yeah, I don't know how to say it. We could ask AI.
NumPy.
It's probably NumPy, yeah.
I would think
Numbers
so.
in Python.
That's what it means. But if things were logical, then everybody would say GIF. Okay,
Well, if
so
someone
that's
took too many
Logical
English
English wouldn't
classes.
be a thing.
okay. So we had that going on. I know last week I said we'd be starting to look at services for competition, but since it was first week of school and all that, we'll probably push it to next week. I wanted to take a look at this because, and I looked back and at that first slide deck, I was actually looking for I was looking for what I showed you guys, but I kept paging through it because there was a quiz we took. I don't know if you remember. And one of the things I asked was, what are you hoping to learn? And I saw on Henry's list was PowerShell. So I thought, well, I've got this cmdlet, and most people didn't have time to look at this. Turns out, Henry, you did, but I thought that we should look at this because this is pretty concise, and this is kind of the way you'd want to do this. You know what I didn't check? So I got rid of the I got rid of the message that nothing was returned. So if I do this, I put sort property first. That's a mistake. There we go. So what do I get out? Nothing, I would assume. Yeah. And that's consistent with other cmdlets, actually. So if I look at like the built-in get child item, it'll say the same thing. So what I did here was a good change. And so I'll get rid of this. And I think I'm ready to submit this to Microsoft now. They'll be so thrilled. Oh, you wrote a really tiny clone of a little bit of get child items functionality. Thanks. But yeah, we still have a little bit of time. Open mic, stump the chump. What do you guys want to do?
Okay, that can be cut back.
So anyway, for the competition, we will start with stuff we've partly already done. We will start with actually SSH, and we will look at setting it up to authenticate with certs. We may have done that a little bit already, kind of informally. But the certs will make a lot more sense now because we've kind of seen how Diffie-Hellman works, and that'll at least give us a feel for what I'll tell you about certs. We're not going to do the cert algorithm. It's a public algorithm. RSA, it's just a formula, as I saw somebody's t-shirt say. It's just a formula. It's just an algorithm. So we'll look at that, and we'll talk about the best ways to set it up, because there are several ways to, and the goal is to protect root. And we'll talk through trying to get to what do we think the best way is to do that. And hopefully, at the end of the meeting, we'll be able to have somebody go and create a checklist for that. And it seems like, it's just SSH, but that's going to be, securing SSH really well is going to be one of the most important things. Like, you want to ask yourself a question. Well, if somebody compromises one box and they wind up in a directory where they have certificates that allow them to SSH to another box, how do we prevent them from automatically becoming root on the other box, right? Even though they've got possession of that certificate. So we'll brainstorm about all that stuff, and that might take the whole day. So we'll it's the kind of thing that sounds like it won't take the whole day. I'm going to assume it will. It just has that feel in me that we'll get through that in 20 minutes. No, we won't. So I think it'll take the whole meeting. So that's what I got for direction. So any questions? I mean, you're going to get back 5 minutes of time. Go ahead.
I'm just going to throw in real quick. I think I'll steal maybe 10 minutes of time at the beginning as a group discussion on what we started with today about what sort of time commitment you guys feel comfortable kind of putting forth, just so that Chris has a understanding of that, you know, this is what I can do pretty much every week. Maybe you can do more some weeks, but you know, that this is kind of a minimum. So if you guys can think about that, and this is not meant to put pressure on you, this is just meant to help guide Chris. So I kind of want to have a group discussion about that. I will promise that it will be 10 minutes or less. Okay?
Cool.
Sound decent, Chris?
Well, sounds great to me.
Okay.
All right, I think we're good. So
Thank you, Chris.
hope you guys have a good week. Thanks for the talk, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
That was very helpful for me. And
Yeah.
hope you have a good week. And
Any updates on the physical location for next week, or Zoom again?
yeah, assume it's remote. I did try to dangle the idea in front of the Armstrong people about, you know, charitable donation, you know, tax write-off. Oh, come on, you know.
Yeah.
Poor high school kids, you know, that live in Bowman Woods or whatever. But yeah, maybe I wasn't obvious enough, but you know, they know me, and I might just write back